Hi guys, let me make sure that this is working. Okay, it says it's starting. Okay, it says I'm live. This is great. Let me just double check one more time on the Okay, yes, it's working. If you're here, let me know. Say hi. Also, I guess let me make sure that this sound's working. Okay, I don't know if the sound's working. So, if you're here, will you let me know? Actually, let me check on my phone really fast. Unless you are here and you can just tell me that that you can hear me, but otherwise I have to look on my phone. This will give everyone a chance to hop on too. I don't know how many people are going to be here live today because it is a holiday weekend. Well, yeah, technically it's a holiday weekend. So, oh yay, okay, we good. We can hear me. If you are popping on now, let me know. Say hi in the chat box. I love to know who's here. But otherwise, I will just hop right in so that you guys that are watching the replay don't have to watch me just ramble for a while. But with all that being said, I hope you had a wonderful holiday week. Oh, and you can see Bella in the background a little bit, maybe. As you can probably tell, I finally got my webcam back and my nice microphone, so this is going to be a way nicer live call than the last two. Since I left my stuff in Arkansas, my mom brought it back for Thanksgiving, so all is well. Okay, so I can't believe we finished all 4 modules already. If you're a little behind, that's totally fine. Don't worry about it. You have all the time in the world to finish, and know that like any time, whether that's like tomorrow or 6 months from now or a year from now, if you have questions, go ahead and just ask them in the Facebook group. I'll always like be popping in there, and I'm actually 99% sure I'm going to open this course so that it's like sort of open year round, so it will be a lot more active as new people join throughout the year next year, once that is like fully open and running. So just know that I will be in there all the time. So anytime you have questions, just let me know. I just probably won't do these live Q&As anymore. So I'm figuring out how that'll work. There's a chance that you might get more just because I love you. But overall, I will for sure always be in the Facebook group. So ask any questions there. I'll answer them going forward. And any questions you have too is helpful. Like if it's too complex for me to answer on the Facebook group, but it's like super important that I include it in the course, like that's really good feedback for me to know like what I need to update, and just make even clearer and like know what you're struggling with so that I can add more lessons to that module or whatever. So, okay, I'll stop talking now. We'll get into the actual questions. Let me see. Are there any that I want to talk about before I get into it all? Okay, yeah. So one question, the first question that I want to talk about before I start sharing my screen is, Stacy asked if I ever start a graphic by drawing it on an iPad in any of the other Adobe programs, and when would I see fit to start there? So that's a really good question. So I personally don't draw on my iPad for one main reason, and that being that my iPad is too old for me to use the nice Apple Pencil with. I actually bought an iPad because I wanted to start drawing on it, but that was pre-Apple Pencil, and so I got one of the styluses that work with this iPad, but it's like such a pain in the ass. It doesn't work. Oh, I'm so sorry. It's a real pain. My bad. It doesn't work as well. like when you touch your, like the stylus to the screen and your hand touches it, it still recognizes your hand. Whereas with the new iPads, when you use it with the new Apple Pencil, you can like rest your hand on the screen and it will only register the pencil tip, which is so handy. So unfortunately, I don't have that. So I don't really use my iPad anymore, to be honest. It's more of like a glorified Kindle. So however, I would love to get a new iPad one of these days when it like makes sense to. But the short answer is yes, that's absolutely something you can do. And if that's something you want to do, I definitely would recommend looking into that. I would, however, make sure that you have one of the newer ones that the Apple Pencil is compatible with. And if you do have or if you don't have an Apple Pencil yet, I would get one before you start using it because from what I hear, they're really nice and they work really well. So get an Apple Pencil if you're gonna have the newer iPad and you want to do that. And from what I know too, without like really being able to super play around in it because I just don't have the capabilities, the Procreate app is actually a really good app for things like that when you're designing by hand on the iPad. That, however, I don't know how well would transfer into things like Illustrator and stuff like that. So that's something you might want to research. But like I know people that are really good at hand lettering on the iPad, they use what's called the Procreate app on the iPad, and it works in a similar way from what I understand to Illustrator, where it has like layers and different blending modes and things like that. But it is, I don't know if it's like better, like more compatible with the iPad than something like, you know, one of the Adobe programs on the iPad is. I haven't played around with either of them, but yes, you can totally start in Illustrator or on the iPad, whether that's in Illustrator, Photoshop, Procreate, whatever. Just make sure you get like a nice stylus and ideally the Apple Pencil. It'll make your life a lot easier. When do I recommend starting there is probably anytime. Honestly, a lot of times I will start just like by sketching my graphics before I start them because I want to make sure like the layout makes sense, or like I need to get out different ideas in my head, or if I get really stuck, then I'll go back to sketching, things like that. So anytime you want to sketch, if you'd rather just do it in the on the iPad, you can totally do that. But the main place I see it being really helpful is hand lettering. Because normally if you're hand lettering, if you're really good at that, which I'm not, so it's not something that I like do or teach. Like if a client needs something hand lettered, I have somebody I outsource that to. But if you're good at hand lettering, A, I'm very jealous, and B, normally what people would do is they would do it on a piece of paper, like take a picture of it or scan it into the computer, put it into Illustrator and either vectorize it or like by image tracing it or by like tracing it with the pen tool. So that's a lot more work. But if you just start in the iPad and hand letter in there, then it's already like vectorized and you can bring it into your programs and make that a lot easier. That's probably really helpful too if you're making fonts, which I've also never done. That's like a more advanced thing that I've never needed to. They're only like $15 from Design Cuts, and lettering in general is not my strong suit, so I've never needed to make one. But if that's something you're interested in doing, the iPad might be helpful for that. And for like general logo design, if you would just rather sketch in the iPad first and then pull in your sketches and sort of like design over top of them, like put your sketches on like the bottom layer and then start designing on layers on top of them inside Illustrator, that might be a good way to use the iPad first. But really it's probably just a preference issue. Or also if you want like more hand-drawn elements and you don't have like a Wacom tablet, which I don't know if I've even talked about what that is in here. Let me pull mine out. Let me find it. Oh, here it is. Okay, so I just have a small one. This is another option too if you don't want to spend, $500. Well, I don't even know if it might be more than that on an iPad. I know the Apple Pencil is like 100. This is a Wacom tablet. This isn't as easy to use when you want to like hand draw elements necessarily, because you're not looking directly at the same, like you're looking at your computer screen but drawing down here, so that's confusing. But this is just a mini Wacom tablet. Oh, that's gross. And it comes with this pen. There, now you can see it. And which has like some buttons on the side. It has this like little tip that you draw with on here. And so this is a good way that I've used if I need like fun brush strokes or like fun little patterns and doodles and stuff like that. I've used this. This is also really helpful if you are using Photoshop to like edit photos. When you edit photos, a lot of times you'll like color in people's faces to smooth them out, or like draw little areas around what you're trying to cover up and things like that. So this is a really helpful tool for that as well. So if you're going to get big into photo editing, I highly recommend investing in a Wacom tablet. And I will actually give you I'll put a link in the course site to all of the things that I'm talking about, so you can just like go and look and know what I'm talking about later. But so yeah, this just plugs into your computer. You set it on your desk and you can draw on it. You can also use you can use this as a mouse if you want. So some people get really good at just using this as their mouse every day. And so you can use it in Illustrator. You can use it for whatever you want, making doodles, hand-drawn icons, illustrations and things like that. But if you don't want to use this and you want to use an Apple or a iPad instead, that's totally an option too. So that was sort of a long tangent. Hopefully that makes sense. Oh, people are popping in the chat. Let me see what's happening in there. Hi, Lee. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you've enjoyed the course. That makes me so happy. I'm so thankful for you and everyone who has taken the course, enrolled, been really active. I genuinely love teaching you guys this stuff, and so this lights me up. So thank you for participating and being here. I really, really appreciate it. Just throw things. Okay, second question. Okay, if you were going to create a graphic with Christmas ornaments in the background on one layer and a solid color with low opacity in the front of that, how would you approach that as a nice background for your flyer or graphic? Sometimes my documents can be text heavy, and simply having a nice background does wonders to bring my promotional piece up a notch. How would you create patterns, like a simple Christmas pattern that would pop to use as a background? Okay. I'd like to know your thought process or how you go about some of these things. So I was looking for inspiration. Okay, so there's a few different ways to go about this. One, you could literally make a pattern. I didn't talk about that in this course because it is a bit of a more advanced skill. It's still something that I get confused about sometimes, because you have to make this perfect square that aligns on all four sides. So it is a bit of a more advanced thing, and that actually might be something that down the road I'll do a bonus lesson on, as how to create a functioning pattern, because you can literally make patterns that when you stretch a shape, it'll fill your whole shape with that pattern a million times and repeat over and over again. However, I can show you how to make a little more basic of a pattern, and show you a little bit more of what I would do for this type of graphic that's a little more fitting for my style, especially if you have a graphic that's really text heavy. I don't know that I would recommend a pattern per se, and I don't even know, maybe you're not even thinking of a legitimate pattern, but I would consider doing more of some sort of simple nice background with the color overlay you're talking about, rather than a busy pattern if you have a lot of text on it. So let me show you what that part looks like. This is very much something that I do. It's kind of one of my main tricks that I'll do when I need something interesting for my graphic. So let me share my screen. Okay, here we go. First things first is I would actually go and find an image from a like free stock photo site. So if I pull this in, is it showing all my screen? Okay, yeah, great. So first I would actually go to like unsplash.com, which is my favorite free stock photo site. And I type in like Christmas ornaments. Okay, and then I would find just like a really nice image. Honestly, like this one would be really nice if it was going to be something that was really text heavy, because this is just like a nice little decorative element that you could put off to the side on your graphic. Maybe we'll download that. And then let's also pick just like this one. All right, so we downloaded both of those. Now let's go in here and let's say that this is like we'll say it's a web graphic. We'll say it's going to be 1200 by 1200 pixels wide. Create. Okay. And then what we'll do is we'll actually place both of, well, I guess let's make 2 artboards. Add a second artboard. Okay. We'll make 2 different ones for both of the images. So instead of actually just going to file place, what I'll actually do is just go here to my downloads and I'll click and drag. It does the same thing. You'll see that it's like a linked image right now. I will shrink it holding down shift. As I do this, I'll make it fill the whole page. Assuming that's what you want. Maybe you only want it to be like half, or you could have it be like a really interesting angle, which I could show you how to do that too. First, I'm going to embed it so that it doesn't go away if I need to come back and edit it and I've gotten rid of like all my downloads or something. So I'm going to embed it. And then let's say we want it to be a cool shape. So I'm going to do like a angled shape like this with the pen tool. Then I'm going to select the shape and the background, and I'm going to press Command 7 to make a clipping mask. Okay, and now we have that in here. I'm going to rearrange it a bit so that both the ornaments maybe show, and I'm going to do that by double clicking on it and then clicking and dragging. Okay, we're going to do that. And then in order to like get a color overlay over top of this, what I'm going to do, because it is like a specific shape, I'm going to double click on this one time. I'm going to copy this shape. I'm going to get out of the clip group, and then I'm going to paste it. And you'll see now we have that exact shape. I'm going to put it back over top of this. And then let's see, I guess let's like pull one of the colors from this photo as the overlay color. So I'm going to choose the eyedropper tool here, and we'll maybe pick this like pink color. Let's like, I don't love that. Yeah, let's do that. Okay, put it back over top. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this opacity setting right here. You can do that here or up here, but we're going to choose opacity. We're going to choose multiply. And now you'll see that this is just like a really nice like background. It adds some texture to your image, but you don't necessarily have to it doesn't necessarily like pull your eye, but it gives you something nice and interesting to look at. And what you could do too is then you could type like, type like Merry Christmas. Just gonna increase the size by a lot. And a color like this is actually kind of a tricky, I like didn't choose that great here because you're not going to be able to use like white. Ideally you'd use white over top of this color, but then you can't use it over top of this color because it's white. Okay, that was a dumb statement, but what I would actually probably do is, well, first let's make it like a nice font. And we can do like this. And I think what we'll do, we'll center it. We'll make it like a deep maroony color like that. And we'll add like white boxes behind it. Actually, I also want to make this all uppercase. I want to increase the letter spacing, and then shrink this down a bit. Okay, great. Now I want to make like some boxes behind this, but I'm going to need to separate the lines of text a bit. And then we're going to make this white and put the text over top of it. Okay. And then I'm going to copy that again by clicking and dragging by holding down the Option key so that it's the same height as the top one, but this one extends all the way out. And maybe what we'll do too is we'll add a little bit of opacity behind this, so make it like 90% so you can see like where it cuts off. So this is just like a very basic like example of what you might be able to do with this. Let's do another one where we pull this graphic. This is a lot more of a simple graphic, and this would do well with like a super text heavy document. We're gonna make it this whole size. Actually, we're gonna make it a little bit bigger so that these like just sit off to the corner like this. Then I'm gonna embed it. And this one, we're just gonna make the entire height and width of the graphic. So we're gonna create a box that's the whole size of the graphic. Then we're gonna select both of them, and I'm gonna press Command 7 to make a clipping mask. Maybe I'll drag this a little bit over so it's not getting cut off. Okay. And then let's make just a nice like opaque overlay over top of it. So let's pull from here again. Let's do like a light green maybe. And then something you could do too is instead of making the opacity like multiply or something like that, you could just do like a nice, I don't love that, but you could play around with something like that where it's like very just like lightly see-through. You could also do we could do multiply with this color and then copy that, paste it over top of it again, and then instead make this normal opacity and do this at like 25, so it adds a little bit more contrast, but still has that like deep green multiply overlay, and then you can type over top of that. So that's a really good way to just add some basic texture. I do this all the time. It also is just like a really nice, clean, modern looking way to enhance your graphic without overwhelming it with like random like design elements. I actually just did something like this for a client. So this is actually a Facebook event graphic that I did this for, and they wanted like somehow champagne to be included because the graphic, the event was about like pop in for our event, and they did it because they're serving champagne. So like pop, you know what I mean, pop bottles. So this was the Facebook event, and then this was the Instagram or Facebook post for the graphic as well. So you can see how this just like is a really nice way to add in an interesting visual element that's relevant, that makes sense, but isn't overwhelming. It's not very time consuming, and it just makes things look really nice and sleek and modern and easy to read. So hopefully that answers that question. Okay, yeah. Now let's see, what's the next question? How do you make a business card with rounded corners? Do I set up an artboard with bleeds differently, or just make sure your dot design isn't in the corners? Okay, yeah, so this is a really good question. So I went ahead and just pulled the Coyote Creative business cards again, since you guys have seen these a million times. So you actually don't need to do anything different design-wise in order to make rounded corners for your business cards. You would actually select this option when you upload it to the printer, or when you go into your printer or email them your file, or however it is that your printer wants you to send them your files and order your documents through them. You would tell them you want rounded corners. And something you can do to make sure that it looks good is you can set up guides to visualize these rounded corners a bit better. So I'll show you how to do that. In general, you shouldn't need to really edit your design in order to have rounded corners, because since we talk so much about padding and making sure things don't butt right up on the edge of the graphic, we shouldn't, it shouldn't get cut off, because you shouldn't have any important text that close to the edge anyway. So let me show you how to visualize these rounded corners. So what I would do actually, let's see, I think this graphic is 2.5 by 2.5 or 2.25. Let's find out. Oh, that's not where I find that. Edit artboards. Okay, yeah, it is 2.5 by 2.5. Okay, so this graphic is 2.5 by 2.5. So I'm gonna create a square that's 2.5 by 2.5, and then round the corners. Well, actually, I'm gonna do a rounded rectangle tool. So I'm gonna use the rounded rectangle tool. I'm gonna click one time. I'm gonna make the height and the width 2.5 by 2.5. And then I'm going to set the corner radius to 0.25, because a lot of the print companies will have a 1/4 inch round corner cutter. Press OK, and then you'll see we have this exact shape. And then you can just put it over top of your graphic and get an idea of what that looks like. However, something I hadn't taught you yet, just because this was probably more information than you would need, especially to get you started, you can actually make guides out of shapes. So because we have this shape, it doesn't have a fill or a stroke, we just have the shape. And it doesn't matter in order to do this, but we're going to take this shape and we're going to go to View, Guides, Make Guides, or you could press Command 5. And now if we unselect that shape, you'll see that that has turned into a blue guide for us. So now you can actually copy that blue guide and paste it in place on this artboard. And then you can see how this one would look too with the rounded corners. So that's all there is to that. It's super easy. You can totally get rounded corners on most things. Just make sure your printer offers it, and you'll be good to go. Okay. What exactly is relinking, and what would you use it for? Is it just re-importing a PDF into Illustrator? Okay, so I can see how this would get confusing. Let me create a new document. This is fine, doesn't matter. Let me place these business cards. So sometimes when I send my clients a finished project, I create what's called a proof. Actually, let me open my proof sheet so you guys can see what that looks like. I actually just have an Illustrator template that you guys know how to set up now. And it's my proof sheet, and so I can put in the client, the name, the date, what number of proof it is, the project name, and what size the document is. So let's use these Coyote Creative business cards, and we'll say also that we're going to round the corners so that they can see what that looks like. So what I would do in this, oh, Bella's dreaming and wagging her tail. So I would do Coyote Creative, I'd put in the date, what is that, the 25th, proof 1, business cards, and then I do 2.5 by 2.5. So for any of you that are trying to freelance, this is a great way to show people what you've created for them in a way that so it doesn't have the bleeds on it and things like that. And I also put a little notice down here that's make sure you check it, because if you print it and there's something wrong on it, it's not on me because you've approved the proof. So anyways, we'll go to File, Place. Business cards, place. Oh, yes. And so what I'll actually do is I will, place the document here, and it's going to come up with this window. We're going to want to crop to the trim actually, because and what I did to make sure, sometimes this window will come up automatically. If it doesn't, what I do is I hold down shift while I click inside my document, and then it will pop up this window. So if this window doesn't appear for you automatically, do it again and hold down shift while you click. And we're going to crop to the trim, which is the bleed mark. So that way we can show the client what it will look like without the bleed. Whereas if we did bleed, it would print the whole thing. And you can kind of see where the dotted line changes based on what we choose. So we're going to choose trim, we're going to press OK and click. And so you'll see it added that, and it's a lot smaller. We can increase the size if we want. But so the only benefit to relinking is that you don't have to go to file, place again, and then find the document again. Instead, you could just like click and drag this, or copy and paste it. I just clicked and dragged while holding down Option, which also copies it. Then select it, and then you can relink it so that you can choose. It goes right back to where you were in your computer. You can place again. Ignore that unsave changes box. It's just because we have it open already. And then instead we can choose page 2 instead of page 1. You could do this by just going to file, place again, and then choosing page 2 instead of page 1. Relinking is literally just replacing an initial link. So it doesn't really matter either way. So don't get too confused with relinking versus just placing in general, because it's literally the same thing. It just depends on what you want to do. You could also, relinking is also helpful if you have like a placeholder inside of your document for an image or something. You could click on that placeholder and relink it. Relink your image so that it goes into that exact spot, rather than file, place, and then like having to resize and put it in the right spot again. But it really doesn't matter. Relinking for me is just a lot faster. You'll probably find it to be a little more efficient as well. But so just so you know, that's all that is. But since we're in here and I'm showing you how I set up a proof, just a little bonus lesson for you. I went ahead and just increased the size a bit since it is being shown on a computer. And then what I'll do is I'll actually create that same rounded rectangle square. Well, actually, what I'll do is I'll click and make sure, make sure the corners are 0.25. And then what I'll do is I will put it over top of that first image. I'll select both of them and I'll make a clipping mask, Command 7, and then it will be rounded corners. So then I'll do that one more time, the correct size, put it over top of this one. And before I actually crop this one, I'm going to copy and paste this. I'm going to copy this shape because I'm going to create an outline around it because it's just white. You'll see what I mean in just a second. So I'm going to press Command C so I copy it. Select both of them, Command 7 to create a clipping mask. And then what I'm going to do is press Command F so that it pastes that shape into the exact same spot on my document, which is the same as paste in place. I have no idea what's going on upstairs. I'm sorry if you can hear that. And then I'm going to select that shape that I put on top of that last, like the business card back. And I'm going to change the stroke to be like a light gray color and make the stroke be like 0.5 or 0.25. Yeah. Okay. So that would be how I would then probably just like center it. And then I would save out this document and send it to a client. So nobody asked about that, but I'm telling you anyway, so that you can get an idea of what relinking means. And also just see how I send proofs to clients. So, and how to make business cards with rounded corners. So bam. Okay, if I set up a library of colors, will it always be there if I have a monthly subscription? Yes. So tomorrow I'm releasing a bonus lesson that is all about how to, oh my gosh, that hammering needs to stop. I really hope you guys don't hear that. I'm so sorry. what was I saying? Oh, tomorrow I'm releasing a bonus module all about how to create a library of colors. So you can see right here in my, okay, that took a minute, but you can see all my branding colors. I also have like several other clients, like my Premier colors, their logos, Bridgemart, things like that. So these all will be here no matter what computer I log into my Creative Cloud account with. And it it will be here, like, as long as I have a subscription, they will always be available. So yes, it's a really good thing to have. I would definitely set one up tomorrow once you have that lesson. It's really easy to set up, and it's really handy to just grab the same colors all the time. Okay, next I saw an export for screens option come up in module 3. What does that do, and is it a useful option? Would you recommend we use it? Okay, yes. So somebody else had asked this last week too, I think. So I went ahead and pulled a logo that I did. I actually just finished this like last week, so you guys are the first people to see it. But I'm going to show you when and if export for screens is ideal. So export for screens essentially just allows you, it is a faster way to export a document. You don't have, export like a raster document. So if you want JPEG and PNG files and things like that, it's a faster way to do both at the same time. It's also a faster way to create multiple sizes of the same document in a raster file. There are several times, like especially if you're working with logos and you're creating logos for a web designer to use for a website, they often are going to need multiple sizes of that logo so that they don't have to go into Illustrator and size it accordingly. So if you already know that they need like a big, medium, and small option of their this logo design for their website, because they'll probably need it for their mobile, for like the mobile design, one for the desktop design, and one for, that's probably it, but maybe for something else like within the design of the website. But anyways, sometimes they'll need multiple sizes, or sometimes you might just want to send your client multiple sizes because they won't necessarily know that they can size it to whatever size they want if they originally use the vector graphic and then save it out accordingly. So it just sort of depends on the client, the situation, and what you're using it for. The bummer is that you don't have as much control over like shrinking the file size. You know how when we do, just threw a pen. You know how when we do file export as, we'll just do this to the desktop. Use artboards, export. You know how we like have more options where we can change the background color to white, transparent, black. We can change this to whatever, or we can do, if we did JPEG, we can do, we can slide this around to shrink the file size, change it to RGB, change the resolution. We have a lot of like, I guess, control over the individual file that you're exporting. Whereas when you do file export for screens, I actually have mine set up because I did this recently. You don't have as much control over it, but it will export multiple sizes and multiple formats all at once. So it really is kind of your preference. So how this works, and maybe too, this is probably a good lesson since multiple people have asked about it. I'll probably add this as a lesson in the future to module 3. But anyways, what I have right here is I've actually set up so that it will export this file, this logo file, as a PNG at normal size, a PNG at 2 times its size, a PNG at 3 times its size, and then a JPEG at its normal size, a JPEG at 2 times its normal size, and a JPEG at 3 times its normal size. And if you wanted to add another one, all you have to do is like specify, this is where you specify the scale of the exported image. So if you want to do like half the size, you can ignore that like suffix. This is just added to the end of the file type, or like the file name. So this will be exported as like whatever this is called. at 0.5x. And this is actually going to just be called artboard 1 because it actually saves it as whatever you call the artboard itself. So if we wanted to do this really nicely, I would actually go in and have changed the artboard name to like Christy Overstreet logo. And then it would save out this Christy Overstreet logo at 0.5x PNG. And this is where you can change it to whatever. I would do either just regular PNG or PNG 100. You could also, obviously, it says like SVG, PDF. There's all kinds of options. So it really is just up to you as to what you want to do. And then what you would do is then press Export Artboard. Oh, and here's where you would save it to a file. So we're just going to save it to the desktop. I'm going to click Choose, Export Artboard. And so now you see, like I said, it's just going to save as artboard 1. So now we have a PNG at half the size, a PNG or a JPEG at the regular size, a JPEG at 2 times its size, a PNG at 2 times its size, a JPEG at 3 times its size, and then a PNG at 3 times its size. So you'd see how that works. And you could totally just play around with it that way. And then the last question I have is, can you place an image, then trace it with the pen tool to create easy icons, digital drawings with realistic proportions, etc.? If so, OMG, cool. And yes, the answer is yes. And I actually pulled an example. It kind of looks a little freaky when you look at it, but I do this all the time. You probably saw in module 4 that I placed, all kinds of stuff and either just trace it or use it as reference. And you also probably saw in a couple different times of like my digital drawings of like me and or my family members of like our faces. I just do these like goofy little like face illustrations. And I don't know if I put this in there, but last year we went to Disney World for Christmas and I made like little digital faces, like drawings of every single one of my family members. There's like 9 of us, and put them all on a t-shirt. So we're like that family at Disney World that all has matching t-shirts and our faces are on the back of them. So I pulled one of them where I actually like kept the photos behind it still. So this is my niece Freya, and you'll see that like this is a photo behind her, and I like drew this illustration over top of it. And you'll see if we go to the layers panel, I have all these different layers in here. So layer 1 is the photo, and then like this piece of hair, the face, eyes, nose, mouth. This is her hair again. I just didn't name the layer. And you'll see like I can get rid of this photo from behind her and you can see her little face. Or if I get rid of all of these, you can see how like I literally sort of just use this photo to trace these different facial features and elements so that it creates like a fun digital illustration of her. So yes, you can totally place images, use them to trace. Really just be careful of like copyright issues if you don't own the photo, or if you're like literally just tracing somebody else's icon. Just be aware that of like any copyright issues you might be like violating. But like, I mean, I own this photo, so it's like no big deal to completely trace it. And I mean, you could do this with any photo. It's more of like if you find somebody else's illustration online and you trace their illustration and call it your own, like that's not cool. But if you take a photo and you create an illustration or an icon or whatever out of it, that's totally fair game. So, but yeah, like I said, just be aware of copyright issues if you are tracing anything. I'm not a lawyer, so I cannot advise you on any of those things, but just know that you can't copy other people's artwork. So, but yes, trace away within the law. That is all the questions that I have that were submitted. I'm going to go ahead and bring my face back. If any of you guys have any questions that are here live, let me know. Otherwise, I'll just like fill you in on what's coming, so that you guys have a few minutes to ask anything else you have. So like I said, tomorrow the bonus modules are going live. So I'm really excited for you guys to be able to dig into those. So you'll get to learn more like let's see, what are we even doing in the print? Like thank you notes, letterheads, things like that. You'll learn how to create them and like what you should consider. You already know all the technical skills to do most of these things, so I'm just showing you like what you need to think about when you're designing those things and how to do it. Then there's an entire like web bonus module where we talk about like creating email signatures and things like that, and then creating the libraries on Illustrator. So those are all going live tomorrow, so stay tuned for those. Otherwise, you have access to everything now, so I'm really excited. I hope you guys are loving everything so far. Like I said, the Facebook group is always going to be there. You're going to have access to these lessons for as long as the course is around, and in that, like, I don't ever plan on closing it, so you'll have lifetime access to the course. And so take your time. If you need to go back and rewatch things, totally do that, and ask any questions you have in the Facebook group. I will be there. Even though there's no more of these live calls, like, I will still be active. Everybody, like, post what you have made. I love seeing that stuff. Also, I am going to be doing a, like, in the course, oh, I'm going to sneeze. Ooh, okay. In the course, I'm going to add, like, a little module that's like, I'd love your feedback, which will be, like, a quick survey. And if you don't mind taking that, I would be so grateful. That's always really helpful for me to know, like, what I could improve. And any improvements I make to the course, you'll get access to them. So anything I can improve, like what you liked, what you didn't like, what you want to see changed, things like that. And then also if you just have any like testimonials for me, or if you've like made really cool stuff and you're like, hey, I want you to see this, like totally show it off if you want. Stuff like that is so helpful so that I can relay the value that this course has had for you onto other people that are considering enrolling in the future. So any testimonials you have, you can either leave them in that survey, or even if you just want to email me them, I would be so grateful for that. I also probably will get to the point where I'll be looking for a couple volunteers that I might like video chat with to talk a little bit more about the course. Maybe even like do a quick little interview about like why you liked it. So if that's something you'd be willing to do, I would be forever grateful for that as well. So that's just a little like tidbit of stuff that would help me help you. So I really appreciate it. And like I said, I'm so thankful for you guys. Like I love doing this. I hope that I can keep teaching tons of other students because this like fills my heart. I love getting to know you guys better. I love being able to like mentor people and teach people skills that I have grown to love and that I think you will too. So I really hope you enjoyed this course. And even though we're not like chatting like this every single week, please don't be a stranger. I genuinely love keeping in touch with everybody. I get so excited when I hear from my past students. So please let me know like what you're doing. Keep posting things in the Facebook group. Keep showing me what you've made because I love seeing it, and I love, like, I will give you feedback all day long if you want it. So don't be a stranger. It's been so fun having you all here. So I'm going to check the chat box. Okay, I don't think there's any more questions. If you think of any going further, if you rewatch stuff, or if you're catching up and you have any more, like I said, post them in the Facebook group. I will be there, and all of your peers will be there too. So if they have any ideas or things that they want to chime into, they will too. And also, like, if you guys see people post stuff, like, feel free to comment on it and tell them what you like, or if you have any suggestions or things like that. Because this is all, like, that group is for all of you, not just for me to, like, talk at you all the time. So I'd love for you guys to like keep helping each other, encouraging each other, cheering each other on, because that makes it all worth it for me. So okay, well, I think we're good to go. Nobody else seems to have anything else they want answered, so I can't wait to talk with you guys more. Don't be a stranger. I think you're awesome. Thank you so much. And I will see you soon.